The ship touched down on Veth Prime just as the twin suns began to set. Una stepped out onto the metal ramp and looked at her new home. The sky was purple and orange, painted with colors she had never seen on Earth. The air smelled strange, like whetstone and something sweet she could not name. She took a deep breath and told herself this was an adventure. The human outpost was small. It had only 6 buildings made of white metal, sitting in a valley surrounded by dark forests. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks hidden by thick clouds. Everything here felt old, ancient, like the planet had been watching and waiting for millions of years. Tay met her at the landing pad. He was tall and thin, with tired eyes and a smile that did not reach them. He had been on Veth Prime for 2 years already, and it showed in the way he walked. Careful, always looking around. "You must be the new botanist," he said. "Welcome to the edge of nowhere." Una shook his hand. "It is beautiful here." Tay laughed, but there was no joy in it. "Beautiful and deadly. Come, I will show you your quarters." As they walked, Tay explained the rules. Stay inside the compound at night. Do not wander into the forest alone. Do not make loud noises. And most importantly, do not engage with the Krull. "The Krull?" Una asked. Tay pointed toward the tree line. "They own this world. We are guests here, and they barely tolerate us. They are predators, hunters. They see us as weak and useless. Not worth eating, not worth talking to. Just there." Una looked at the dark trees. She saw nothing, but she felt something. Eyes, watching. "What do they look like?" she asked. "You will see soon enough. Just remember, do not approach them. Do not feed them. Do not try to make friends. They are not like us." Una nodded, but in her heart, she was already curious. Her quarters were simple. A bed, a desk, a small kitchen area. There was a window that looked out toward the forest. Una unpacked her things and placed a picture of her mother on the desk. Then she started organizing her cooking supplies. Cooking was her comfort. On Earth, she had learned from her grandmother. Simple dishes made with love and patience. When she joined the space program, she brought her recipes with her. No matter how far she traveled, she could always make something that tasted like home. That first night, Una could not sleep. The planet was too quiet. On Earth, there were always sounds. Cars, birds, people talking. Here, there was only silence. Deep and heavy, like the world was holding its breath. She got up and went to the kitchen. She decided to cook. It would calm her nerves. She set up a small heating unit outside her door. The outpost had a covered area where she could work. She pulled out vegetables she had brought from the ship and a small piece of protein meat from the storage. Nothing fancy. Just a simple stir-fry. The heat rose from the pan. The vegetables sizzled. The smell of garlic and ginger filled the air. Una smiled. This was familiar. This was safe. She did not notice the eyes watching her at first. They came from the tree line. 3 pairs of golden eyes, glowing softly in the darkness. They were low to the ground, hidden in the shadows between the trees. Una only saw them when she looked up to check the sky. She froze. Her hands stopped moving. The spatula hung in the air. The eyes did not move. They just watched. Una's heart beat fast. She remembered what Tay had said. Do not engage. Do not approach. But these eyes were small. Too small to be adult Krull. They were at the height of a dog. Maybe lower. Cubs. They were cubs. She swallowed hard and forced herself to keep cooking. She stirred the vegetables slowly. She added the meat. She pretended like nothing was wrong. The cubs did not come closer. They stayed at the edge of the forest, watching. Their ears were tall and pointed, like a cat's. Their bodies were covered in short, dark fur. She could see the outline of long tails swishing behind them. They were curious. She could feel it. When the food was ready, Yuna scooped it onto a plate. She sat down on a small chair and began to eat. The cubs watched every bite. Their noses twitched. Their ears turned toward her. She wondered if they had ever seen fire before, if they had ever smelled cooked food. The Krell were predators. They hunted. They ate raw meat, fresh from the kill. Cooking was something they did not do to them. She must look very strange. A soft creature with no claws, no fangs, sitting alone in the dark, eating food over fire. It made no sense, but still, they watched. Yuna finished her meal and washed her plate. When she looked back at the tree line, the cubs were gone. Only the dark forest remained, silent and still. She went inside and closed the door. Her hands were shaking, but it was not from fear. It was from excitement. The next morning, she told Tay what she had seen. He frowned deeply. "Cubs? Are you sure?" "Yes, 3 of them. They watched me cook." Tay shook his head. "That is strange. Krell cubs do not leave their mothers. They are taught to hunt, not to explore. You should stay inside at night from now on." But Yuna did not listen. That evening, she cooked outside again. This time, she made soup. The smell was strong and warm, drifting into the cool night air. The cubs came back. They sat in the same spot, at the edge of the trees. 3 small shapes with golden eyes. They did not come closer. They did not make a sound. They just watched. Yuna smiled at them. "Hello," she said softly. "Do you like the smell?" The cubs tilted their heads. One of them made a small sound. A chirp. Like a question. Yuna's smile grew wider. She had been on Veth Prime for only 2 days, and already she had made contact. Not through diplomacy or science. Through food. She did not know it yet, but this was the beginning of something big. Something that would change everything. For now, she just stirred her soup and let the cubs watch. They sat patiently, hoping she would let them try something new. The days passed slowly on Veth Prime. Yuna spent her mornings studying plants in the small greenhouse. She tested soil samples and took notes on native vegetation. But her mind always drifted to the evenings, to the cubs, to their golden eyes watching from the shadows. Every night, she cooked outside. She made different dishes each time. Rice with vegetables, noodles with sauce, grilled meat with herbs from earth. The smells floated through the valley and reached the forest. And every night, the cubs returned. They crept closer with each visit. On the 3rd night, they left the tree line and sat in the open grass. On the 5th night, they were only 20 steps away. Their noses never stopped twitching. Their ears turned at every sound Yuna made. They were learning her, studying her. Just as she studied them, Yuna noticed they had different personalities. The largest cub was bold. It always sat in front, head high, watching without fear. The middle one was shy. It hid behind the others and peeked out carefully. The smallest was the most curious. It leaned forward, stretching its neck, trying to get closer to the smell. She gave them names in her head. The bold one was Big. The shy one was Shadow. And the curious one was Little. Tay watched all of this with growing worry. "You are playing a dangerous game," he told her one morning. "Those are not pets. They are predators. Their claws can cut through metal. Their teeth can crush bone." Yuna nodded. "I know, but they are just curious. They have never seen cooking before. They do not understand it. That is exactly the problem. You are confusing them, changing their behavior. Their mother will notice. The elders will notice. And then we will have a problem." Yuna did not argue. She knew Tay was right, but she could not stop. There was something about the cubs that pulled at her heart. They reminded her of the stray cats She used to feed as a child, hungry, wary, wanting something but afraid to ask. She would not hurt them. She would not chase them away. She would simply cook and let them watch. 1 week after her arrival, something changed. Yuna was cooking a vegetable stew when she heard footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Coming from the forest, she looked up and saw a shape moving between the trees. It was large, much larger than the cubs. It walked on 4 legs at first, then rose onto 2. Its body was covered in dark gray fur. Its eyes burned like fire. A Krull adult. Yuna's blood turned cold. She had seen pictures of the Krull, but nothing prepared her for the real thing. The creature was taller than any human. Its arms were thick with muscle. Its claws curved like knives. Its face was a mix of wolf and cat, with a wide mouth full of sharp teeth. The Krull walked toward her. The cubs scattered, running behind their mother, because that was who this was. Yuna could see it in the way the cubs pressed against her legs. Their mother. The Krull stopped 10 steps away. Her eyes scanned Yuna from head to toe. There was no fear in those eyes, only cold judgment. "Human," the Krull said. Her voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "What are you doing?" Yuna forced herself to stay calm. "I am cooking, making food." The Krull sniffed the air. Her nose wrinkled. "This smell. It is wrong. It is burned prey. Dead heat. It is how humans eat. We cook our food. We heat it over fire." The Krull stared at her for a long moment. Then she looked at the cubs hiding behind her. "My children come here every night. They do not hunt. They do not train. They sit and watch you. Why?" Yuna chose her words carefully. "They are curious. The smell is new to them. I did not call them. I did not force them. They came on their own. You are luring them." "No, I am just cooking. If they want to leave, they can leave." The Krull growled. It was a low, dangerous sound. Yuna felt her legs shake, but she did not run. She stood her ground. "I am Rova," the Krull said. "I am their mother, their teacher. I decide what they learn. Not you." Yuna bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect. "I understand. I do not want to cause trouble. I just cook. That is all." Rova studied her again. Her eyes moved to the pot of stew bubbling over the fire. She sniffed once more. The disgust on her face was clear, but there was something else too. Something hidden beneath the surface. Curiosity. "What is in that?" Rova asked. "Vegetables, water, salt, some herbs. No meat?" "Not this time. Sometimes I add meat." Rova tilted her head. "You eat plants?" "Yes. Humans eat many things. Plants, meat, fruits. We cook all of them." Rova said nothing for a moment. Then she turned to her cubs. She spoke in their language, a series of clicks and growls. The cubs looked at Yuna, then back at their mother. The smallest one chirped. Rova's expression softened, just a little. "My smallest asks why your food smells like the sun," she said. "It does not understand." "Neither do I." Yuna smiled gently. "Heat changes things. It makes food softer, easier to eat. It brings out flavors that were hidden before." "Hidden flavors?" "Yes, raw meat tastes one way. Cooked meat tastes another. Cooking unlocks something inside the food." Rova looked at the stew again. She seemed to be thinking. Then she stepped back. "I will be watching you, human. If you harm my cubs, I will kill you." "I would never harm them," Yuna said. "I promise." Rova turned and walked away. The cubs followed, but the smallest one looked back. It chirped one more time before disappearing into the trees. Yuna let out a long breath. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were sweating. but she was alive. Tay appeared behind her. His face was pale. "That was Rova," he said. "One of the best hunters in the Krull tribe. You are lucky to be breathing." Yuna nodded slowly. She was not going to hurt me. She was protecting her cubs. "And now she knows about you. The whole tribe will know by morning." Yuna looked at the forest. The trees were dark and quiet. "Good," she said. "Let them know." Tay stared at her like she was crazy. Maybe she was. But Yuna knew something he did not. She had seen the look in Rova's eyes. The curiosity hiding beneath the anger. The mother was interested. She just did not want to admit it. Yuna stirred her stew and smiled. Tomorrow night, she would cook something special. Something with meat. Something that would make Rova come back. She was not afraid anymore. She was excited. The cubs wanted to try something new. And maybe, just maybe, their mother did too. The storm came without warning. Dark clouds rolled over the mountains and covered the twin suns. Thunder shook the valley. Rain fell in heavy sheets, turning the ground into mud. It was the kind of storm that made you want to hide inside and wait. Yuna sat in her quarters, listening to the rain hit the roof. She had planned to cook outside tonight, but that was impossible now. The wind was too strong. The rain was too heavy. She would have to wait until tomorrow. Then she heard a sound. A small chirp. Coming from outside her door. She opened it and found the 3 cubs sitting on her doorstep. They were soaked. Their fur was flat against their bodies. Their golden eyes looked up at her with something she had never seen before. Fear. The smallest one chirped again. It was shivering. Yuna did not think. She stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in," she said softly. "Come inside." The cubs hesitated. They looked at each other, then at the warm light inside. The bold one, Big, stepped forward first. Then Shadow followed. And finally, Little, dripping water and still shivering. Yuna closed the door behind them. For a moment, no one moved. The cubs stood in the center of her small room, looking around with wide eyes. Everything was strange to them. The furniture, the lights, the pictures on the wall. They had never been inside a human building before. Yuna grabbed towels from her cabinet. She kneeled down slowly, making herself smaller and less threatening. "It is okay," she said. "You are safe here." She reached out with a towel and gently rubbed Little's fur. The cub flinched at first, then relaxed. Its shivering began to slow. The other 2 watched carefully, and when they saw that Yuna meant no harm, they let her dry them too. Soon, all 3 cubs were sitting on the floor near the heating unit, their fur fluffy and warm. They looked much less scared now, almost comfortable. Yuna smiled. "Are you hungry?" Big's ears perked up. Shadow tilted its head. Little chirped. That was a yes. Yuna went to her kitchen and started cooking. She made a simple vegetable stew, the same one she had made on her first night. But this time, she added something special. Meat, real protein from the ship's storage, cut into small pieces and simmered in the broth. The smell filled the room. Rich and warm and savory. The cubs sat in a perfect row, watching her every move. Their noses twitched. Their tails swished back and forth. They were more excited than she had ever seen them. When the stew was ready, Yuna poured some into a small bowl. She let it cool for a few minutes, then placed it on the floor in front of the cubs. "Here," she said. "Try it." The cubs stared at the bowl. They sniffed it. The smell was overwhelming, unlike anything they had ever experienced. In their world, meat was fresh. Blood was warm. Prey was eaten moments after the kill. This was different. This was transformed. Little leaned forward first. Its small tongue dipped into the broth. It tasted. Its golden eyes went wide. Then it chirped. loudly, excitedly. The other two crowded in. Big pushed its nose into the bowl. Shadow lapped at the edges. Within minutes, the bowl was empty. They licked every drop, their tongues searching for more. Yuna laughed softly. "You liked it." Little chirped again and pressed its head against her hand. It was warm and soft, and Yuna felt something melt in her chest. These were not monsters. They were children. Curious, hungry children who just wanted to try something new. She made more stew and filled the bowl again. The cubs ate until their bellies were round. Then they lay down near the heating unit, their eyes half closed, their bodies relaxed. Yuna sat on the floor beside them. She watched them sleep, their chests rising and falling slowly. Outside, the storm still raged, but inside, everything was peaceful. She did not know how long she sat there. Maybe an hour, maybe two. But then she heard footsteps outside. Heavy footsteps. And a voice. "Human!" Yuna's heart stopped. She knew that voice. Rova. She stood up quickly and opened the door. Rova stood outside, her fur soaked, her eyes burning with anger. But when she saw the cubs sleeping peacefully inside, her expression changed. She pushed past Yuna and entered the room. She looked at her children, then at the empty bowl on the floor. She sniffed the air. Her nose wrinkled. "What did you do to them?" she demanded. "I fed them," Yuna said calmly. "They came here during the storm. They were cold and scared. I let them inside. I gave them food." Rova stared at her. "You fed my cubs with that?" She pointed at the pot on the stove. "Yes, cooked meat and vegetables. They liked it." Rova looked at her cubs again. The smallest one, still asleep, made a soft sound. A purr, a sound of contentment. A sound Krull cubs only made when they felt completely safe. Rova's eyes widened. She had never heard her cubs make that sound outside of their den. "What is this?" she whispered. "What did you do?" Yuna knelt down beside the cubs. "I did what humans do. We take care of those who need it. We feed the hungry. We shelter the cold. It does not matter if they are our own kind. If someone needs help, we help." Rova stood very still. She seemed confused, lost. The anger in her eyes was fading, replaced by something else. "You are prey," she said slowly. "Soft, weak, no claws, no teeth. How do you survive?" Yuna smiled. "We survive by helping each other, by cooking food so it lasts longer, by building shelters so we stay warm, by caring for our young and our old. We are not strong like you, but we are not weak either. We just have a different kind of strength." Agree, just have a different kind of strength. Rova looked at her cubs one more time. Little stirred in its sleep, its paw reaching out toward Yuna. "She trusts you," Rova said quietly. "My daughter trusts you. I would never hurt her. I would never hurt any of them." Rova was silent for a long moment. The rain outside began to slow. The thunder grew distant. Finally, she spoke. "I do not understand you, human, but my cubs are safe. They are fed. They are warm. I have never seen them like this outside our den." She turned toward the door. "I will return when the storm ends. We will talk more." Then she was gone, disappearing into the rain. Yuna let out a long breath. Her legs felt weak. She sat down beside the cubs and rested her hand on Little's back. The cub purred again, pressing closer. Tay appeared in the doorway, his face pale. "What just happened?" Yuna looked up at him and smiled. "I think I just made a friend." Tay shook his head slowly. "You are either the bravest human I have ever met, or the craziest." "Maybe both," Yuna said. She looked at the sleeping cubs and felt something warm in her heart. This was why she had come to the stars. not to study plants or collect samples, but to connect, to show that humans were more than their soft bodies and clawless hands. They were kind. They were caring. They cooked food and shared it with strangers, and sometimes that was enough to change everything. Word spread quickly through the Krell village. The humans had a strange one among them, a female with no claws and no teeth who made fire and turned prey into something unrecognizable. And the strangest part was that Rova's cubs had eaten this food and asked for more. The elders were divided. Some called it corruption. They said the human was poisoning the young ones, making them weak, destroying their hunting instincts. Others were curious. They had heard stories of humans from traders who visited distant worlds. Soft creatures who somehow conquered stars. Perhaps there was something worth learning. Rova found herself caught in the middle. She was one of the tribe's best hunters. She had killed beasts twice her size. She had led raids and won glory. Her opinion mattered. And now everyone wanted to know what she thought of the strange human and her fire food. 3 days after the storm, Rova went to visit Yuna again. But this time, she did not go as an angry mother. She went as a student. Yuna was working in the greenhouse when Rova appeared. The Krell ducked through the doorway and looked around at the plants growing in rows. Her nose twitched at the unfamiliar smells. "Human," she said, "I have questions." Yuna stood up and wiped dirt from her hands. "I have answers." Rova walked slowly through the greenhouse, touching leaves with her claws. "My cubs will not stop talking about your food. They do not want raw meat anymore. They want the warm thing you gave them." "Stew," Yuna said. "It is called stew. Stew." Rova tested the word. It felt strange on her tongue. "How do you make it?" Yuna smiled. "I can show you. Would you like to learn?" Rova hesitated. Learning from prey went against everything she knew. But curiosity won. "Yes," she said. "Show me." That evening, they stood outside Yuna's quarters together. Yuna had set up 2 cooking stations. One for herself, one for Rova. She had gathered vegetables, meat, water, and salt. Everything needed for a simple meal. "First," Yuna said, "we need fire." She showed Rova how to use the heating unit. The Krell watched with wide eyes as flames appeared from the small machine. Fire was not unknown to her people. They had seen forest fires, lightning strikes. But controlled fire, fire that obeyed you, was something else entirely. "The fire is your tool," Yuna explained. "It does what you tell it. You control the heat. Too little and the food stays raw. Too much and it burns." Rova nodded slowly. "Like hunting. You must know when to strike." "Exactly." Yuna placed a pot of water over the fire. "Now we wait for it to boil. When you see bubbles, that means it is ready." Rova watched the water carefully. When the bubbles appeared, her ears perked up. "It moves." "The water moves without wind. Heat makes water dance," Yuna said with a smile. "Now we add the vegetables." She dropped chopped vegetables into the pot. The water hissed and splashed. Rova jumped back, startled, then laughed at herself. It was the first time Yuna had heard a Krell laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound, like thunder in the distance. "I am not afraid," Rova said quickly. "It just surprised me." "Of course," Yuna said kindly. "Now it is your turn." Rova approached her own pot. Her claws were not made for delicate work. She struggled to hold the knife Yuna had given her. The vegetables kept slipping, but she did not give up. She cut them into rough pieces and dropped them into the boiling water. "Good," Yuna said. "Now we add the meat." Rova was more comfortable with meat. She tore it into strips with her claws and placed it in the pot. The smell that rose was unlike anything she had known. Raw meat smelled like blood and life. This smelled like comfort. Now we wait, Una said. The heat will do the rest. They sat together while the stew cooked. Rova asked questions. Many questions. Why did heat change food? Why did humans prefer it this way? How had they discovered fire? Una answered each one patiently. My grandmother taught me to cook, Una said. She said food made with love tastes better. I did not understand when I was young, but now I do. Cooking is not just about eating. It is about caring, about taking time to make something good for someone else. Rova was quiet for a moment. My people do not think this way. We hunt, we eat, we survive. There is no time for caring about how food tastes. Maybe there can be now, Una said gently. Your cubs liked my stew. Maybe your people would too. Rova looked at the pot bubbling over the fire. The steam rose into the night air. Her cubs appeared at the edge of the light, watching with excited eyes. They chirped when they saw their mother cooking. They are happy, Rova said softly. I have never seen them look at food like this before. Food is more than fuel, Una said. It is connection. When we share a meal, we become closer. Strangers become friends. Enemies become family. The stew was ready. Una poured some into bowls and gave one to Rova. The Krell huntress sniffed it carefully, then took a small taste. Her eyes went wide. She took another taste. And another. This is. She struggled for words. This is not meat. But it is not meat. It is something else. It is cooked, Una said. Transformed. Made new. Rova stared into her bowl. When she looked up, her eyes were different. The suspicion was gone. In its place was wonder. I want to learn more, she said. I want to show my people. Over the following weeks, Rova came every evening. She learned to make stew, grilled meat, roasted vegetables, and simple soups. Her first attempts were disasters. She burned meat until it was black. She added too much salt. She forgot to stir and let food stick to the bottom of pots. But she kept trying. Other Krell began to notice. Young hunters watched from the trees. Elderly ones whispered among themselves. Even the suspicious elders could not ignore the changes happening in Rova and her cubs. One evening, a young Krell hunter named Bale approached Una. He was smaller than Rova, with lighter fur and curious eyes. I want to learn, he said simply. Una gave him a pot and a knife. More came after him. One by one, the Krell joined Una's cooking lessons. They sat around fires, learning to control heat, to mix flavors, to wait patiently while food transformed. It was strange work for predators. It required patience instead of speed, care instead of violence, but they learned. And as they learned, something changed in how they looked at Una. She was no longer the weak human. She was the teacher, the one who knew secrets they had never imagined. Tay watched all of this from the outpost windows. He still thought Una was crazy, but he could not deny what was happening. You are changing their entire culture, he said one night. Do you understand that? Una nodded. I am not changing them. I am showing them something new. They are choosing to accept it. And if the elders decide they do not like it? Una looked at the group of Krell gathered around the fire. Cubs and hunters, and even a few elderly ones, all cooking together, all learning. Then we will have a feast, she said. And we will show them that transformation is not weakness. It is strength. Tay shook his head. But for the first time, he smiled. Maybe the crazy human knew what she was doing after all. The invitation came on a morning when the twin suns shone brighter than usual. A group of Krell elders appeared at the outpost gates. They stood tall and proud, their gray fur marked with symbols of their rank. The oldest among them, a scarred female named Vora, spoke with a voice like grinding stones. Human Yuna, she said, you have taught our young ones strange things. You have shown them fire that obeys, food that transforms. Our cubs speak of nothing else. Even our hunters have changed their ways. Yuna bowed her head respectfully. I meant no disrespect to your traditions. I only shared what I knew. Vora studied her with ancient eyes. You have confused our people. Some say you bring corruption. Others say you bring wisdom. We cannot agree. She paused. So we will let the food decide. What do you mean? A feast, Vora said. Tomorrow night, our tribe will gather. You will cook your strange food. Our hunters will bring fresh kills. We will eat both, and we will judge which is worthy. Yuna felt her heart beat faster. This was a test, a challenge. If she failed, everything she had built would fall apart. But if she succeeded, I accept, she said. Vora nodded once, then turned and walked away. The other elders followed without a word. Tay appeared beside Yuna, his face pale. You just agreed to cook for an entire Krell tribe. Do you have any idea what you are doing? Yuna smiled, but her hands were shaking. Not really, but I will figure it out. She spent the rest of the day preparing. She gathered all the ingredients she had left from the ship. Vegetables, herbs, spices, protein meat from storage. It was not much, but it would have to be enough. Rova came in the afternoon with her cubs. Little ran straight to Yuna and pressed against her leg, chirping happily. Big and Shadow followed more slowly, but their eyes were warm. I heard about the feast, Rova said. The elders are testing you. I know. Many of them want you to fail. They think cooking makes us weak. They think fire is for destruction, not creation. Yuna knelt down and scratched Little behind the ears. What do you think? Rova was quiet for a moment. Then she sat down beside Yuna. I think you have shown my cubs something beautiful. I think you have shown me something beautiful. I do not want you to fail. Will you help me? Rova bared her teeth in what Yuna now knew was a Krell smile. Of course. You are my teacher and my friend. They worked through the night. Rova gathered local vegetables that Yuna had never tried before. Strange roots that tasted like honey. Thick leaves that softened when heated. Small fruits that burst with juice. Together, they experimented. They mixed human recipes with Krell ingredients. They created something new. By morning, they had prepared 3 dishes. A stew made with local meat and earth herbs. Grilled vegetables seasoned with Krell spices. And a dessert of roasted fruit with sweet sauce. The feast was held in a clearing near the Krell village. Hundreds of Krell gathered in a wide circle. Elders sat at the front, watching with sharp eyes. Hunters stood behind them, curious but skeptical. Cubs peeked through the legs of adults, noses twitching at unfamiliar smells. In the center of the circle, 2 long tables stood side by side. One held raw meat from the hunt, fresh and bloody, arranged with pride. The other held Yuna's cooked dishes, steaming in the cool evening air. Vora raised her hand for silence. The crowd went quiet. Tonight we eat as one tribe, she announced. We taste the old ways and the new ways. We judge with our bellies and our hearts. Let the feast begin. The Krell moved forward. Some went straight to the raw meat, tearing into it with claws and teeth. Others hesitated, looking at Yuna's table with uncertain eyes. Little was the first to approach the cooked food. She chirped loudly and grabbed a piece of grilled vegetable, stuffing it into her mouth. Her brothers followed quickly. Then other cubs. Then young hunters who had learned from Yuna in the past weeks. Soon, both tables were surrounded. Yuna watched nervously. She saw Krell tasting stew for the first time. Their eyes went wide. They reached for more. She saw hunters trying the grilled vegetables, confusion turning to pleasure on their faces. but the elders did not move. They sat in their places, watching. Finally, Vora stood. The crowd parted as she walked to Yuna's table. She looked at each dish carefully. She sniffed. She frowned. Then she picked up a piece of stewed meat and put it in her mouth. The clearing went silent. Everyone watched. Everyone waited. Vora chewed slowly. Her expression did not change. She swallowed and looked at Yuna. "What is this?" she asked. Yuna stepped forward. "It is meat from your world, cooked with herbs from mine. I made it to show that our peoples can share, that we can combine our strengths." Vora reached for another piece. And another. She finished the entire portion, then looked at the other elders. "This is not corruption," she said loudly. "This is creation. The human has taken our food and made it new. She has not made us weak. She has given us a new tool." The crowd erupted. Cubs chirped. Hunters roared. Even the skeptical elders began to move toward the table. Rova appeared beside Yuna, her eyes shining. "You did it. They accept you." Yuna felt tears in her eyes. "We did it. Together." The feast continued late into the night. Krell and humans ate side by side. Tay finally left the safety of the outpost and joined the celebration. He tasted Krell raw meat for the first time and immediately regretted it, but he laughed anyway. Little never left Yuna's side. She sat beside her teacher, full and happy, purring softly. As the twin moons rose, Rova stood before her people. She raised her voice so all could hear. "This human came to our world with no claws and no teeth," she said. "We thought she was weak. We thought she had nothing to teach us. But we were wrong." She looked at Yuna with respect. "She fed our children when she had no reason to. She taught us that strength is not just in hunting. It is in patience, in creation, in sharing what we have with others." The crowd was silent, listening. From this day forward, Rova continued, "Yuna is one of us. She is a hunter of a different kind, a hunter of hearts. And she has caught ours." The Krell cheered. They pressed forward, touching Yuna gently with their claws, a gesture of acceptance. She was covered in soft touches from creatures who could have killed her with one strike, but they chose to welcome her instead. Later that night, as the fires burned low, Yuna sat alone at the edge of the clearing. The cubs were asleep nearby, their bellies full. Tay sat beside her, shaking his head. "You actually did it," he said. "You changed everything." Yuna looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, her grandmother's kitchen, the smell of home. "I did not change them," she said. "I just cooked. They changed themselves." Tay laughed softly. "That is the most human thing I have ever heard." Yuna smiled. She thought about all the worlds out there, all the strange creatures who had never tasted cooked food, never felt the warmth of a shared meal. There was so much work to do, but for now, she was happy. She was home. The cubs stirred in their sleep. Little chirped softly, dreaming of stew. Yuna closed her eyes and listened to the sounds of the feast, fading into the night. This was why humans had traveled to the stars. Not to conquer, not to control, but to connect, to share meals and stories and laughter, to turn strangers into friends and enemies into family. One pot of stew at a time, and somewhere in the galaxy, word would spread. A human had tamed predators not with weapons, but with food. She had taught them to cook. She had taught them to care. The Krell would join the galactic community one day. And when they did, they would bring something no other predator species had ever offered. Friendship. And really good stew.